All right, since we have a little bit of time, I'm going to add a few things to this issue that we have in regards to doing business with Goyim. Now, if you notice in your Siddur, there's the 10 remembrances, and one of them is that you have to remember what Amalek did to us every day. We also have that mitzvah in Purim, which is less than 2 weeks away. But the mitzvah of remembering Amalek is something that we have to remember every day, what he did to us, so we don't repeat what he did. Now, the Sefer Dvarim, the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 25, verses 13 through 16, is called Parashat Zachor. Just those verses are called Parashat Zachor. And it talks about Amalek. And over there, Rashi says that after teaching the laws of honest business, and then warning that a violation of these laws, of business laws, not of anything else, violation of business laws, is considered toivat Hashem, meaning someone that's dishonest in business is considered an abomination in the eyes of Hashem. Disgusting. Saying it street language, like us. Like, for example, if you walk across the street, and as you're walking, you see there's a nice raccoon suntanning with his intestines out in the middle of the street because some car ran him over 2 days ago. So it's had a nice amount of time to get suntan. And all types of maggots are coming out of him. Right now, you guys are disgusted just by my words, right? That's much less disgusting in the eyes of Hashem than a dishonest person in business. So Rashi says, this person that's dishonest in business, it's considered toivat Hashem, is connected to the reminder of Amalek and what he did to us, to teach us that the use of fraud with measures, dishonest business, provokes Amalek. As it says in Proverbs, deceitful scales are an abomination to the Lord. When willful wickedness comes, then comes the disgraces. So Rashi says here that when a person is willingly dishonest, not unintentional, honestly, his business, he's running a pawn shops and he's ripping people apart, telling them that their goods are worth $5. In reality, he knows they're worth $500,000 on day one. He sells them something that looks like gold, tells them it's gold, but in reality, it's not even copper. He sells them brand new stuff, but in reality, it's refurbished. He charges them, interest that's 20, 30, 40, 50 times the market rates. All types of things like this. This type of dishonesty, this type of wickedness gives power to Amalek. That's why those two things are connected. Dishonesty and the whole remembering of Amalek. Because that was Amalek's nature, was dishonesty. Now, the Sefer Tzror HaKesef, Aroch, it's Rabbi Chaim ben Shmuel, which was a Talmid of the Rashba. In Derech Hamishi and Shar Vav, Ot Aleph, he says one who lends with interest makes 6 love sins. 6 major sins. The lender, the borrower, the broker, the contract maker, we mean the sofer, are all sinners, the Rambam writes. And even to lend money with interest to a goy, he says, it says that one who benefits greatly from interest, from neshech, will end up losing it to one who favors the poor, in Proverbs 28:8. So the Sefer Tzror HaKesef says that, okay, obviously if you lend money to a Jew and charge him interest, you're making 6 different types of sins. you're losing olam haba. You're not going to get resurrected with the dead. You're the worst of the worst. But even if you're going to use the leniency of lending money to a goy, because there are some that say you can lend money to a goy and charge him interest, if you're going to make money out of it to the point where you're becoming successful, just know all that money Hashem's going to take away from you. Meaning, Hashem hates this business. Even if you want to use the leniency to do it with the person you're allowed to do it with, Hashem still hates it. Hashem still hates it. Now, what if you borrowed money from a cash advance person and you know he's sinning? You know he's sinning, so can you just default? No, not to default. Why? You borrowed the money, you have to pay it back. You have to pay back. Pay back as soon as possible. Don't do the payments because they're going to rip you up with the interest. But the point is, you have to pay back because you borrowed the money. You don't pay it back, it's gezel, it's stealing. You're also a thief. But nonetheless, a person needs to know that this business of lending is Hashem hates it. Hates it. Even if you're doing it in a so-called kosher way. Now, the Yalkut Yosef Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, Yoreh De'ah, Siman 159, Ilchot Ribit, Seif 8, says, the Torah permits us to lend money to a goy, but only to make a living was the heter made for. Meaning only to lend money to a goy is allowed only if it's just enough to make a living. You need $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month to pay your bills. That's it. You're not allowed to make a penny more. You're not allowed to get rich off of this business, even on the permissible side. And not to become wealthy, says the Yalkut Yosef says, unless the person is a Talmid Chacham, who's even permitted to become wealthy from it. So, if a person is a Talmid Chacham, he has a little bit different rules. But how many people are Talmid Chachamim in any of these cash advance places? I don't even think these people know how to read Chumash sometimes. But nonetheless, you have a serious situation. Now, Arav Yosef Shaul Natanson, in Sefer Divrei Shaul, Ilchot Edut, Perek 2, Halacha number 5, says, a person shouldn't even lend money to a goy if he wants to do tshuva for lending money with interest, because he must uproot the desire to lend money from the heart. So when the Torah said to lend money to a goy is a mitzvah, it also told you that you can escape from this mitzvah by not lending at all. Like one who has a mitzvah of shluach haken in the mountains, which you can avoid. Meaning, even though there's a mitzvah to go do shluach haken, which is taking the mother bird, shooing it away to take the eggs, says you have this mitzvah, you can do it in the mountains. But no one told you have to go do it. Where, you going to go climb a mountain? No. So it says, yeah, it's a mitzvah to go lend the goy money, but no one is saying you have to go lend him the money, though. No one is saying go do it. You could do other things. You could lend money to a Jew with no interest. But that's the problem. People forget that part. So remember, he says, remember that when you lend money with interest, there is an issue of Chilul Hashem here. Meaning, even if you fulfill, let's say, the mitzvah of lending money to a goy with interest because you're allowed, because there's an heter to lend money to an interest, assuming it's fair interest, not the cash advance 40, 50% interest craziness. Talk about, let's say you're lending him 15%, market rate, let's say. Okay? Even that, you have to be concerned because of Chilul Hashem. Because that goy is going to always look at you as a Jew representing Judaism. Even if you're not religious. Even if your kippah is smaller than a quarter. Even if your beard, it's only because you forgot to shave. He's still going to look at you as the Moshe Rabbeinu. And if he doesn't like how you're treating him, it becomes an issue of Chilul Hashem. You have a very serious problem on your hand. Now, he says that a person is seriously in taking a big risk, even trying to make a living out of this business. Now, what is this? Okay, so Rabbeinu Bechaye says his commentary on in Parashat Kititze, verse 23, chapter verse 23, verse 21. He says that he mentions these two major sources that talk about ribit, interest to goyim, and so on, in Masechet Makot, page 24a, and Bava Metzia 71a. He says all of this permission to lend money with interest is only referring to a Talmid Chacham, just to make a living. So then Rabbeinu Bechaye ben Asher continues, says, what about the verse that says Lenochi tashich ve'leachicha lo tashich, leman yivachecha Hashem Elokecha b'kol, that you may cause the Gentile to take interest, but you may not cause your brother to take interest, so that Hashem your God will bless you in your everything. What about all of that? He says the fact that it's permissible to charge a goy interest shows that it's in nature, and it's not a crime per se, like stealing. Stealing, everybody knows that it's a you're not allowed. And charging interest is not like like stealing. But the Ramban actually elaborates on this particular point. He says, especially since the Torah promises a reward for not charging interest, which is not promised for not stealing. Meaning, if you don't steal, you don't get a reward. But if you don't charge interest, it says you get a reward for it. So the Torah teaches that just like Jews must give tzedakah to each other, they also must give loans interest-free to each other. But the Gentile, they don't. They're not permitted. Meaning, it's not a. There's no permission to turn the lending into to goyim as the mitzvah that you're doing. Needless to say, it's also there's no permission for you to turn the lending into stealing. So, further on that particular verse in Leviticus 25, verse 37, where it says, "Et kaspecha lo titen lo beneshech ubimarbit lo titen echalecha ani Hashem." It says, "Don't give him your money for interest or for increase. Don't give your food. I am Hashem." So Rashi says interest is called two things here. First, it's called neshech, interest, and second, it's called marbit, which is increase. This is to show you that lending money with interest is two sins. Two sins. And the Kli Yakar says neshech comes from the word neshicha, which is like to bite. The biting of the borrower. Every time he takes an interest from somebody, he's like biting him. But the marbit is referring to that the person is becoming rich off of other people's misfortune. So therefore, to increase the fortune of the lender is due to hurting the borrower. In essence, the reason why Hashem hates the whole business of making money with interest beyond what you need to make a living, and assuming you're a Talmid Chacham, is because the whole business of making money from interest is predatory in nature. You're making money off of other people's hurt, other people's pain. But then you're going to say, wait a minute, but he's borrowing the money, he's reinvesting it, and he's making money with it. Yeah, but he could do the same thing if you didn't charge him interest. Like, he doesn't need you to charge him interest in order to do his business. Your interest is not helping his cause, it's hurting it. If anything, it's jeopardizing everything he's doing, not helping it. You're not helping his mitzvah. Don't live a delirious life. Now, in Exodus 22:24, says, when you lend money to my people, so to the poor person who is with you, don't act towards them as a creditor, it says. Don't lay interest upon him. So the Kli Yakar says, if you help the poor by giving them an opportunity to do so, Hashem helps you. And Hashem requires a person to have compassion for people that are needy, meaning that charging them interest is the opposite of being compassionate. It's a bad midah. It's a bad character trait. And that's why the prophet Yecheskel, chapter 18, verse 13, says the following: "Beneshech natan v'tarbit lakach, v'chai lo yichyeh, mot yumad damav bo yeh." Says someone who gives loans with usury and takes interest, should he live? The prophet says, he shall not live. He shall surely die, and his blood is upon himself. And the Midrash Me'am Loez says, this is one of the sources we use from the prophet Yechezkel. You lend money with interest, you lost olam haba. Because when the prophet says, what, someone lends money, he's going to live? What does it mean live? Not live here. You think he's going to get olam haba? You out of your mind? He is not only going to die, but it's his fault. Why? Because he knew it was wrong. After you're in the business for a few months, you start seeing people default. You start seeing people cry that they can't pay on time, and so on and so forth. You're seeing the whole business as gross. You're seeing it. You have a whole file of default. You give it to somebody else, and they start calling him and hounding him in the middle of the night. Sir, when are you going to pay? Start knocking on the door, sending him lawyers, doctors, this, that. Give people heart attacks because of all this thing. So, Prophet Yechezkel says, Damav bo is its own fault. He knows. His blood is on his own hands. Now, some people, that are the wicked people, think like Lut, who said, why put the muzzles on your sheep? Let them eat wherever they want. Because anyway, Hashem promised everything to Avraham. Meaning some people, the wicked people, they're like, listen, you're allowed to make money from the goyim, right? So that's one reason to do it. Another reason is, if I don't lend the money, someone else is going to lend the money. So might as well be me. What's the difference? Might as well be me. So the answer to Lot is, yeah, you were right that Hashem promised the land to Avraham, but not today. Yeah, there is a permission to lend money to goyim, but not to you. Yes, someone's going to lend the money anyway, but it doesn't need to be you. It doesn't need to be you. That mentality is a mentality of a Rasha. So the Shulchan Aruch, Choshen Mishpat 358, Halacha number 2 says, anyone who steals even a pruta, even a dollar, is violating a lav prohibition, lo tignevu, which comes from Leviticus 19:11, and must repay the money, whether it's to Israel or it's to the Gentiles, whether it's from the old or it's from the young. Meaning, stealing is forbidden from Jews and non-Jews. It's not that you're allowed to steal from non-Jews, chas v'shalom. Shulchan Aruch says outright, the whole issue of stealing a dollar you have to pay back to goyim also. You're not allowed to take more money from them. You're not allowed to take advantage of them. Who says you're not allowed? And the commentary by the Shach says, on this specific halacha, says this shows that stealing from a goy is a biblical prohibition. Stealing from non-Jews is actually a Torah violation. It's not rabbinical. It's not lesser. It's Hashem puts it in the same exact class. And that's what the Maharshal says, the Ramban, the Tur, the Samad, all say the same exact thing. Now there's two different types of things. There's Gneva and there's Gezel. Gneva is hidden theft. Gezel is open robbery. Open robbery. Now, if someone, for example, robs a house while it's night, no one's there, that's Gneva. If he robs it during a day where everybody's there, it's Gezel, robbery. It's Gezel. What about charging interest and overcharging and things of that nature? That's considered Gezel. Why is it considered Gezel? Because the guy is watching you take the 40, 50, 60, 80% in his face. It's not like he doesn't know that you're doing it. Yeah, but he signed the paperwork. Yeah, he signed it not realizing what kind of damage you're causing him. Everybody that signs contracts doesn't realize what kind of damage is in the small print. Everyone that signs the contract doesn't realize that they're going to be that exception that's really not an exception. That's actually more the standard. Everyone that signs a contract is overly optimistic. No one thinks that they're going to lose their whole life savings because of you and your strange language that you put in your language in order to take advantage of people. No one is going into this agreement with even an 1 ounce expectation that the worst thing is going to happen, or that the interest that they're going to pay is going to be as much. Everybody has different situations. So the fact that he signed the contract doesn't mean it's allowed. You manipulate him into signing the contract. No, but he called me for the money. Yeah, you called. You said yes, but in reality is you told him everything's going to work out. You didn't tell him that 90% of your clients are defaulting because of such a high interest, and they're looking to refinance as soon as possible to get them out of hell that you put them into. You didn't tell him about the conversation you had 5 minutes before him of the mother that is now a single mother because the father committed suicide because he couldn't make payments. And they lost the house. You didn't tell him about that part. You didn't tell him. All you told him is the thank you letters you got from a few people just the day they got the money, not by the time they paid it back. You're lying. You're lying. That's the reality. You're lying. Now the Rama in Even HaEzer, Siman 28, Halacha number 1, says that if a person is a mekadesh of a woman, meaning he took her as a wife by instead of a ring that he bought, he robbed this ring. But he robbed it from actually, no, yeah, okay, then we'll go into this. This is a little bit deep. He robbed this ring from a goy. Is it still a valid marriage? Says yes, it's valid marriage. Why is it a valid marriage? You robbed this ring. Aren't you not allowed to benefit from marriage? So the Gaon Mivina says it's not referring, this gezel that the Rama is talking about is not referring to gezel that's in open daylight, but rather simply taking borrowed money from somebody and not returning it. So that's still considered gezel, but it's not the same gezel as you just mamash robbed them in the middle of the street and so on. And the second thing is that the Bet Shmuel elaborates on this point, says that really this is still a valid marriage because the woman that took the ring, she's benefiting out of it, but she's not robbing it from the person. He gave it to her. She's a new owner. So for the people that are talking about, whether is a stealing from people is allowed, not allowed, they're going to try to use this Even HaEzer, this Rama, saying, look, you could even steal from Goyim and so on. So no, you have to know that there is stealing and there's stealing. There's gezel and there's gezel. There's different classes of gezel. Don't try to misconstrue certain things or misinterpret them. Now, the Shulchan Aruch in Siman 359, Halacha number 1, says that you're not allowed to rob or steal from anything, kol she'u, from Israel or an idolater. And the Yerushalmi says that Midat Chasidut even forbids taking a stick off of a tree or a garden that's not yours. You're walking around, you see a little, your friend's tree, you decide to just take off a little piece of his tree. I don't know, you just like to take off stuff. If you were trying to be someone that's really righteous, even that's not allowed. Even that's not allowed. Is your friend going to actually get affected by it? Is he going to lose sleep over it? Probably not. But if you're trying to be mamash righteous, even that's not allowed. Why? You should even pay attention to your friend's property to the extent of a leaf in his tree. That's really what a Kadosh Baruch Hu wants. Why? The commentaries on that, Yerushalmi says, because a real Jew is supposed to be even more stringent with the property of others, needless to say, even more stringent with Goyim than he is with Jews. Meaning you should be more careful with the business dealings you do with Goyim than you do with Jews. Because if you violate the agreement between you and another Jew, one Jew and another, that guy's going to tell you, listen, you're a bad guy. But if you violate the agreement or ethical rules between you and a non-Jew, that non-Jew is going to say, all Jews are bad. Meaning you've become the representative of all Judaism. And it turns into Chilul Hashem. So a person that's doing business with Goyim needs to know you have to be even more stringent, more strict, more honest with the Goyim than the Jews, which is the opposite of what people's mentality is today. So what's one of the examples? The Shach says in Siman 337 Seif Katan Aleph, he says that a Jew that works for a goy is forbidden to eat while working, even though he's allowed to eat while he's working for a Jew. Let's say you work for a Jew. You're allowed to eat during your job because you have to survive and so on and so forth, right? But if you work, while you're working even, you're allowed to eat because you haven't eaten, whatever. But if you work for a non-Jew, you're not allowed to eat during your job. You have to wait for your designated break time. You're not allowed to eat nothing. Why? You have to be more strict with how you work for the Goyim because he's not going to understand anything. He's going to judge all of Judaism based on you. And one, the Tosefta in Baba Kama says, one who steals from the Gentile must repay him just as the theft as he stole from a Jew, but you should know that the theft from a Gentile is much worse than stealing from Jews. To such an extent that the Knesset HaGedolah in Siman 359 says that even stealing from a Jew, it talks about you're not allowed to steal a pruta, a dollar. He says from the Gentiles, even less than a pruta is forbidden. Even stealing a penny from him is forbidden. Because it's worse than stealing from a Jew, the Knesset HaGedolah says. Because a Gentile doesn't forgive even for a small amount. Meaning, if you stole $1 from your friend that's a fellow Jew, he'll let it go. It's $1. Okay. Whatever. It is what it is, right? But the Goy, he's not going to give up even for a penny. Even for a penny. Now, I told you guys a story about the guy that was stealing in the newspaper, in the toilet paper business. It was a guy that was stealing in the toilet paper business. And it's one of the clips we have on the internet. Good story, famous story. The guy that was stealing in the toilet paper business, he heard from a rabbi, you're not allowed to steal. He did tshuva. He started giving his customers extra toilet paper from now on without them knowing. And he ended up getting rewarded handsomely by Hashem because of it. Now, why did he do this tshuva? Because the rabbi says that anyone that steals cannot enter Gan Eden, even if he fulfills all of the mitzvot. Jew that steals can, if he keeps Shabbat, keep this, he steals, goes to Shamayim, sorry, you cannot enter Gan Eden with blood on your hands, because stealing is blood on your hands. So one of my students heard this, and she said, you know what, I borrowed $100 from my sister 15, 20 years ago. And I never paid it back. Now, after that much time, it's stealing. You didn't pay back. It's stealing. You borrowed money and you have it to pay back. Not that you don't have it. You have it. You didn't have it at the time. But you have it to pay back. You didn't pay back. That's stealing. But all the time, it's our sister. But then she said to herself, after she heard this clip, she said, what if she didn't forgive me? What if she didn't forgive me? I have to come back in the Gilgul. She says, you know what? I decided, after I watched that clip, I said, there had to be a reason I'm watching this clip. I called my sister, give me your bank account. She sent her the $100. The day she sent her the $100, her sister sent her an email with all of the receipts and all of the records she had still kept for 15 years about this $100. Meaning she was right, she never forgave her. She had receipts of all the money, where the money went, and how she still owes him, and how it got up to $100. For $100, 15 years, the sister didn't forgive it. And guess what? The one that lent the money, that didn't forgive, she died six months later. She died 6 months later. So that my student, she tells me, thank you for that shiur. Because if she would have died, I would have never known that I would have had to come back in the Gilgul for $100. Unbelievable how Torah shows you how right it is. So the Knesset HaGedolah says it's even more forbidden to steal from a goy, to the extent where even if it's less than $1, because the goy is never going to forgive the Jew. Simply not going to happen. He's always going to remember you stole a penny from him. You stole 50 cents from him. You stole 90 cents from him. Don't mess with it. It's mamash lava. It's not even fire. It's lava. Rabbeinu Zalman says, even if the goy hurts the Jew. He hit him, he punched him, he embarrassed him. Not with money, he didn't hurt him with money, but he hurt him with other things. It's still forbidden to hurt the Gentile with money loss. Even if the goy punched him in the face and hit him, and he's the worst guy in the world. Still not allowed to steal from him. Yeah, but he's a bad goy. Doesn't make a difference. Still not allowed to steal from him. Just because he's bad doesn't give you permission to be bad. Now, Shulchan Aruch 228, Halakha number 6, says it's even forbidden to deceive the Gentile with Gnevat Dat. And the Sefer Pitrei Choshen adds that even if the Gentile will never find out that you cheated him, you're still not allowed to deceive him. Even if you cheated him, but he's never going to know. Let's say, for example, he came to you and says, I want to buy kosher meat, and you sold him non-kosher meat for the price of kosher meat, which is more expensive. He's never going to know if it's kosher or it's not kosher. He's never going to know. There's no way. It's not like something in the meat you're going to know it's kosher or not kosher. There's no way he's going to know. He says it's not allowed. Not allowed to even if he's not going to find out. Even if there's, let's say, no way for it to be a chilul Hashem. Still not allowed. And the Mordechai says you're even forbidden to lead him astray, to allow an error. This all applies to this cash advance business. Why? Because they're saying, listen, we're giving him a contract. With all the terms, we're going to charge him 40, 50, 500%, whatever it is. If he signs it, it's his problem. No. The Mordechai says you're not allowed to lead him to a point where you know he's making a mistake. You know that no normal human being with common sense is going to sign such a contract that's going to pay interest that's simply unpayable unless the business doubles in size. It's just no one would ever do such a thing. No normal human being would do such a thing. No normal human being would sign a contract where you're pretty much putting a gun to his head, where if he's late or if he defaults by payment by 1 month, you pretty much took over all of his possessions because of the confession of judgment part of the contract that they have. Where guys default on a payment by 1 month, in 24 hours they take over all of his possessions. No one normal would ever sign such a thing. No one normal will ever sign such a thing. And even without the confession of judgment, no one normal will sign a deal where you're going to pay him 80% if he's not in desperate, unrealistic terms. So even leading him astray to allow him to make an error, the Mordechai says in his commentary in the Shulchan Aruch says it's also not allowed. And that's why the verse in Leviticus says, "Velo tonu ish et amito," that you should not grieve your fellow because you have to fear your God. This is referring to business conduct. A person is not allowed to take advantage of other people. Now the Pele Yoetz, we'll finalize with this. The Pele Yoetz is this. The Pele Yoetz in Erech Gezel says, sadly, the intentional forgetful that the Gezel has become an eter, meaning permissible, in their eyes by changing its name to hustling or to being shrewd, because we know stealing from a goy is worse than Israel because of the Chilul Hashem. So he says that people are calling they're stealing, they're calling it no, I'm just hustling, I'm just being shrewd, I'm just being aggressive, but as if it's allowed. He says, we all know it's not allowed. We all know it's stealing from Goyim is 100% Chilul Hashem, as the Mekubalim, like the Chida, the Arizal, and the Chida mentions the name of the Arizal, and also Rabbi Chaim Pelagi in Kaf HaChaim 21:7. They all say, Israel that steals from a Goy caused the Sar, the angel of the Goy, to take the shefa, the reward that the Jews are supposed to get, they take. Meaning, when a Jew steals from a goy, he's given permission to the angel of the goyim to take the reward of the Jews. So when you have Jews benefiting from stealing from goyim, even if you're not the one that's stealing, you're not stealing, but there's guys in the neighborhood that are stealing. There's guys in New York that are stealing. There's guys in Florida that are stealing. There's guys that are stealing the Jewish people. They're also hurting you. Why? Those people that are stealing from goyim, they're giving permission to the angel, the sal of the goyim, they're giving permission to take it back. Meaning, Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh Lazeh is not just in the physical form, but also the spiritual. When we allow Jews to take advantage of non-Jews, all Jews lose. All Jews lose. And that's what in the late 1600s, the Rabbi Moshe Rivkash, the Be'er HaGolah, writes this. I write this for future generations because I've seen many wealthy men that benefited from the mistakes of the goy, not even from stealing from goyim. He says, I've seen many people that became wealthy from benefiting from mistakes of goyim lose all of their blessing and all of their money. Because they didn't even take advantage of the goyim by stealing from them and so on. They just benefited on a regular basis. Every time a goy made a mistake, they took advantage of it. They never told him. The guy gave him a change. Instead of giving him $100 change, he gave him $1,000 change. Instead of giving 10 tens, he gave him 10 hundreds. He didn't pay attention to it. This guy loved when goyim were making mistakes. So the Be'er HaGolah says, I saw some people that were rich, got rich off of those mistakes. Every time the goyim would make mistakes, they never say a word. I saw Hashem take every single one of their dollars. All of them. As the Sefer Hasidim wrote, that those who returned the mistakes of the goy made a Kiddush Hashem and had their wealth grow rapidly. He says, I saw the two sides. The people that took advantage of the goyim, they ended up losing everything they have. It looked like they were getting rich in the beginning. They bought a bigger house, they got a bigger company, got a bigger building, but in the end, they lost everything. They lived like homeless people. And then the people that did the right thing, they gave the money back to the goyim, they didn't take advantage of the goyim, they did good, even though they didn't have much to give. They did it, in the end they got a blessing from Hashem where they became the rich. Meaning that HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves honesty to the extent that if a Jew is honest in his business, there's no question that he will have bracha. He will have bracha. And bracha, Rabotai Karim, has no number on it. Because when you have bracha, you simply have everything you need. And there's nothing better in the world than that. I know a few people that have millions and millions of dollars, but no bracha. All of their money is being wasted on medical bills, lawyers, doctors, Shem Yachem, all types of divorces, all types of horrible things. They were better off not having the money. And then the few people that don't have very much, but they have almost as if like they're richer than anybody else. Why is there bracha? They're bracha. So a person that steals, a person that's dishonest, a person that's unethical in business will never have bracha, no matter how much money he donates. So much so that the Klosenberger Rebbe said to a rich guy that came to his Bet Midrash to donate big money, like millions of dollars, to one of his yeshivot. When the Klosenberger Rebbe spoke to him, he says, what do you do? He says, I have companies, this, that, the other thing. So the Klosenberger Rebbe says, wow, so you must have a very difficult schedule. Must have a very difficult schedule. He goes, no, Rabbi, I already made so much money. I'm relaxing. All my companies are making money on their own. And I just go, I play some poker and some cards with my friends. I go on vacation, have a good time. But thanks for caring, Rabbi. The Klosenberger Rebbe's face changed. He looks at him He says, "Ata lo mitbayesh? You're not ashamed of yourself? You're already 70 years old, and this is how you act? Well, you don't learn any Torah. Instead, you go play in a casino. Instead, you go play cards with your friends. When are you going to know Torah? What, you think he says to him, what, you think you're going to go to heaven because you're donating money? Just so you know," he says to him. Everybody's there. So hundreds of people there watching this. He says, "Just so you know, all that money that you donated, you're going to go to Gehenom for it." Why? Because that money was made from gambling. That means that those boys that benefited in that yeshiva that you paid for, those kids got the money. They were able to eat. But guess what? Those kids were not able to understand the Torah because the money was tameh. It came from an impure source. So you hurt those little boys. You didn't help them. You're going to get punished for every single one of them. You're going to get burned, he says to him. Hashem yishmor v'yatzil. The guy's face, the billionaire's face, turned mamash like pale. Forget pale. It's see-through. See-through. Ran out of there. Now everybody else got, upset with the Rebbe. He's not usually like this. So the Rebbe, after he left, the Rebbe says to them, "Listen, I'm not delusional to think that he's going to stop stealing and he's going to stop gambling and he's going to change everything overnight. I'm not delusional. I know it's going to take time, but I know that from now on, I'll have a little bit of pain every time he does it. So hopefully he'll do tshuva before he dies. And it's worth it for me to give him a chance to do tshuva than getting his money to make him think that he's doing okay." If your money is coming from a non-kosher source, there's never going to be blessing in your life. Never. It's a rule in the nature that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created. So, if a person is in this cash advance business or any unethical business, in the end, there's no bigger loser than you. Because even if you make money, that money will turn into a curse. Because you took advantage of people, whether they're Jews or Gentiles, it's still a sin. It's obviously, each one has its level of sins, but nonetheless, there's no doubt, there's no dispute that overcharging goyim, taking advantage of their mistakes, taking advantage of their desperation, there are countless sources to discuss how a person is simply not only considered wicked for doing so, but is losing everything for it. Losing everything for it. In this world and the next. It's asur. I know this will get a few people to do tshuva and leave that business, but at the same token will get a few people to shut it off and continue living a fake life. We don't make these shurim for the people that shut it off and continue living their fake life. We make these shurim for the few people that will do tshuva. Hopefully more and more people do tshuva, and B'ezrat Hashem that despicable business will have no Jew in it. B'ezrat Hashem.